I'm South Shore Press News Director Stefan Mihailu, joined by Power Lawyer from Power Firm, Joe Birds from Holtzman Vogel. Joe, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, this is an important topic to talk about because it's the issue of moving local elections to even numbered years, Joe. And the common belief, the common thought is that the governor and Democrats want to move every single local election, whether it's town supervisor or dog catcher, to even years, because traditionally that's a presidential, a gubernatorial, massive Democratic turnout. But there was a ruling in court this week, so of course this is in the courts now, that impacts whether or not this can happen. So, Joe, can you just describe as best as you can for our listeners, our viewers, exactly what happened in the Court of Appeals this week when it comes to the lawsuit about moving these elections to even years?
Sure. So a little history. In 2023, the state legislature passed this law. The governor signed it into law that would move most of your local elections to even numbered years. For the most part, they're held in odd years. The two big exceptions to that would be city elections. So, city of Buffalo, city of New York, city of Utica, city elections, as well as judicial elections and the constitutional offices of sheriff, county clerk, and district attorney. Those were all exempted from this law, and they would continue to run as they have been run. Every other office, so virtually all your town offices, virtually all your other county offices, county legislature, county executive, those would be moved to even numbered years. Number of counties, some towns filed a lawsuit challenging this change. It was heard in Onondaga County because the first local government to file a lawsuit was the county of Onondaga. It was heard in Onondaga County, and all the cases were heard together. The judge of that case, Judge Neary, made the decision that the state had overstepped its authority under the New York State Constitution in moving all these elections to even numbered years. State Constitution provides a tremendous number of protections to local governments, especially to county governments. So Judge Deary said that the state had overstepped its authority. So no surprise, the New York State filed its appeal. Most of the time, your appeals in state court would go from the trial court, primarily Supreme Court, trial court to the appellate division, and then from there potentially to the Court of Appeals. Because there was an issue, a constitutional issue, an issue under the state constitution in question here in New York State, under certain circumstances, those appeals can go directly to the state court of appeals, and that's what New York State, who lost at the trial level, that's what New York State attempted to do here, is go straight to the Court of Appeals to have the Court of Appeals hear the arguments. So what happened this week? The Court of Appeals had this under consideration for a few months now. And what the Court of Appeals said this week is, no, you don't have this appeal as of right to us, to the Court of Appeals. Instead, you have to go through that traditional process that we see most of the time. You've got to have this first heard at the Fourth Department, which, as you know, being like me from out here in Western New York, that is the appellate division that covers the vast majority of Central New York, Western New York, even part of the Southern Tier. You've got to go there first. You've got to have it heard by the appellate division first, and from there you might be able to have this heard by the Court of Appeals, by us, the Court of Appeals. So that's where things stand right now.
So, Joe, in layman's terms, the big dog, the Court of Appeals said, whoa, wait a minute. No. You're not fast tracking this straight to us. We're bumping it back down, basically. In layman's terms, isn't that exactly what happened?
Yeah, more or less. You've got to go through that process. Most cases follow. And you've got to have this heard first by the appellate division. Unlike the appellate divisions, you don't have a right to go to the Court of Appeals. You have a right to have your case, your appeal heard by the by the appellate division. So that's where things stand right now.
So, Joe, could it be seen as a short-term legal victory for those who want to keep the status quo, who do not want to go to even year elections for local elections?
I tend to think so. I think others might disagree with me, but I tend to think so. In the state legislature, every Republican in the state legislature voted against this change. Conventional wisdom is that politically speaking, it's more harmful to Republicans. Although I think there's some questions out there about that, but put that aside. That's the conventional wisdom. I tend to think that the appellate division, that the Fourth Department tends to be more conservative than the state court of appeals. If you're looking at party affiliation, there are more Republicans on the appellate division, on the Fourth Department. And you certainly have some Democrats, a number of Democrats actually, that have run with the backing of the Conservative Party. You never know. These are panels of 4 or 5. So you never know exactly who's going to be on the panel that would hear this appeal. But I tend to think if you're on the side of being against this change, being against moving the local elections to even years, that I tend to think that this is a plus.
So, Joe, last question for you. It seems as though I'm calling this a victory for those who do not want to change local elections, who want to keep it as is, who don't want to go to even years, because the longer it's in the courts, correct, the longer the status quo stays.
I think so. I do think that this will probably be heard relatively quickly, or at least quickly enough where we'll get a decision before the 2025 general election. When we look at the totality of the circumstances here, this is probably a plus. This is probably a good thing for those of us who do think that local elections should stay on odd-numbered years.
Is there a chance that this could be ruled on so quickly that it impacts this year's election?
You talk to a lot of folks like I do, of all parties. I'll be honest, there's a lot of Dems that I talk to who are really skeptical of this change. Putting aside who it benefits politically or not, the idea that these local races for town clerk, for highway superintendent, for county legislature, that they're going to get caught up in the politics of national politics of abortion and war and peace and all these national issues. And you wonder if this is going to become an issue in some of the local races that are going on this year. And if it will work to the benefit of Republican candidates who would mostly be arguing against this change to even year elections. It remains to be seen.